Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Voices of Fowler as we continue this election series. My guest this evening is Tomas Carrasco, candidate for Fowler City Council. Tomas, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you a Fowler native?
Um, kind of. I was born in January. I was adopted in April and moved to Fowler when I was about 3 months old.
I think that counts.
Okay. So then, yes, I was born and raised in Fowler.
Absolutely. All right. Very good. And I went to Fowler High, I take it. You're a Red Cat alum?
Yes, Marshall Fremont, first student body president of Sutter Middle School, Fowler High, class of 2003.
So you've been here right along the entire way. You know, I'm curious, having grown up here, you've had an opportunity to watch Fowler grow and change. What has that experience been like?
It has been crazy. I remember neighborhoods used to be vineyards. Where Sutter was used to be vineyards that I used to play in as a child. And now it's Sutter Middle School. There's the neighborhood behind Right Oil and 76.
Hmm.
That's now neighborhood. And then there's a neighborhood on the other side of that. But I think the biggest thing was once we got a Starbucks, we finally made it. You know,
Hmm.
we were a town when we got the Starbucks.
Sure, sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, gosh, today I don't know if you can ever go by there on a weekday morning and not see the line of cars backed up virtually all the way into the street.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I work in Selma and I work in Fowler, so I've avoided going down Merced Street. So I go down Golden State to go to work in the morning.
that's a good strategy. So tell me a little bit about your candidacy. What has motivated you to want to run for public office?
um, I was always told by my father, Victor Crosco. Some of you might have went to high school with him, had him as a catechism teacher, or known him around town. That we need to be the change we want to see happen. That it's up to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sitting back and not doing anything just doesn't cut it. And
Hmm.
so, when I was getting my degree, I had to do an internship, and so I started going to city council meetings, getting involved. And it was the late Mayor Cardenas who said, I want to get you involved. It's time for us, the old guard, to hand it off to the newer generation.
Hmm.
And so he put me on the design review committee where I've served the last 2.5, 3 years. And, with his passing and seats up, I think it was more people. You go to the meetings, everyone in town knows you, you know everyone, you know the procedure, you know the process, like just do it.
Hmm.
Like Nike says, just do it.
Hmm.
So, after thinking about it long and hard, I said, you know what, let's do it.
Hmm.
It's up to us to be that change. And so that's why I'm running.
When you think about some of the changes that you want to see occur in this community, what do those look like to you? What do you want to accomplish if you're elected?
If elected, I want to make sure that as the town grows outward, we don't forget the innards, the inside of Fowler, I guess, old Fowler, if you want to call it that.
Hmm.
I want to make sure that the sidewalks are being taken care of, the curbs, the gutters, the lights, the street signs. I want to make sure that while the outside can take care of itself, it's up to us to make sure the inside, I guess, grows and adapts with it to complement the outside. That
Hmm.
when you drive through town, it's beautiful east to west, north to south, and then zig to zag.
Hmm. Absolutely. There have been a number of candidates that I've spoken to, a number of townspeople who have been upset over the recent decision to transfer the fire department over to Cal Fire. Is that something that motivated you to want to run?
Um, yeah, I would say so. I was already kind of thinking about it. I guess you can say that kind of gave me a little bit more push to want to run.
Hmm. Hmm. And what I take it you're unsatisfied with what's happened, dissatisfied with the ultimate conclusion. Are there, if elected, is there anything that you want to do to try to either reverse that decision, or are we just going to have to kind of live with the status quo?
Oh no, I want Fowler to have its own fire department. I believe one of the residents, Cirilla Medina, said that whether it's Cal Fire or the Fowler Fire Department, this town needs a professional full-time fire department.
Hmm.
And what I want to see is the building complete.
Hmm.
I want to see our volunteers or whoever we hire, if we don't have enough volunteers who want to be full-time, part-time, fully staffed, fully trained, get that state fire marshal stamp of approval, because that seems to be the kind of gray area from attending the meetings that I heard, that
Hmm.
there wasn't that approval. And I want to make sure that the money is there,
Hmm.
that we can fund it in year 1, year 5, year 10, year 20. That, if we have to do a special tax, a firefighter tax, measure F for firefighters, I want to ask the residents, if elected, are you comfortable with a 5-year tax, a 10-year tax, or a infinity tax?
Hmm.
Because we don't want to do an infinity tax if maybe a 5 or 10 year would help get it off the ground and get it self-sufficient and funded by it on its own.
Hmm. Hmm. No, certainly. What are the other things that you would like to accomplish if you're elected? I mean, I know you've talked about city improvement. You've talked about the idea of potentially trying to find a healthy medium there in terms of dealing with our fire department. What else would be an agenda item for you if you're elected?
I want to promote new business in town. A lot of people, as I've been going around handing out signs and talking to the residents, a bank,
Mm.
a pharmacy, maybe another grocery store, um, after school activities for our youth,
Mhm.
because not a lot of people are into sports. So, a gardening club, a music course, a painting course, just something that we can offer to our residents who maybe aren't athletically inclined.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, when I was growing up, I think I was under 5 feet until my junior year in high school.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't the strongest, I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the tallest.
Mhm.
So I think if we could provide something like that to our youth, that would be something that I would want to bring to the town.
Mhm.
Something for everyone, I guess you could say.
Sure, absolutely. Right. Well, and to your point, it's a community that we share together, and so it would be great if we could get everyone involved in some facet. A question that I have asked other candidates who've been on the show, again, because it was done in such a public forum, I feel it's relevant. For those who haven't seen the first episode, an existing council member has made a proclamation that he would like to assume the position of mayor for Fowler that was vacated with the passing of Mayor Cardenas. In order to do that, he would need to get support from council members who would be electing him from amongst their ranks. If you're elected, would you support Councilman Karzanian?
Yeah, I would support Councilman Kazarian after I speak with him to make sure that his vision for Fowler and my vision for Fowler are on the same path. You know, do we both want what's best for the town? Do we share the same goals for the town, the same vision? So, I mean, if there's another city councilman out there who wants to throw his hat in the ring, I would, do my homework, talk to both of them, and I feel I would align myself with whoever best aligns with my vision for the town.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'll say if that's Councilman Kazarian, then yes, I would vote for Councilman Kazarian. Or if Councilmember Para or even Councilman Mejia has a different vision that more aligns with me, then I would be inclined to vote with them for them.
So at this point, if I'm interpreting your response correctly, it's not necessarily a guaranteed vote for anyone. You're going to keep your mind open and wait to find the council member who most aligns with your values.
That's correct.
Very good.
They said they all want, at the meetings I've attended, Pro Tem Rodriguez, Mejia, Parr, and Kazarian all said they want to reopen the fire station and that their goal is to get it back up and running as soon as possible. So that would be one of the factors. Do they share my goal of fixing the inside of town? So yeah, at this point, I would keep my options open.
Hmm.
But I mean, if it was Kazarian who more aligned with my vision, then I would vote with him or vote
Hmm.
for him to be mayor.
Hmm. Hmm. When you think about accessibility to the public and the public's ability to reach you and to talk to you, how important do you think it is to listen to the comments of community members in regards to your performance on the council or even ahead of time campaigning? How important is their feedback?
I think it's very important. I think it's the number one thing because I'm just one vote. It's the residents who vote me to be their voice on the city council if I'm elected. So I feel we need to have 100% accessibility. Email, you can drop by my work. Hey, I noticed this, that, and that. Shoot me a text message, maybe give me a call. But I believe that we should be accessible within reason. Don't call at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of thing, unless it's an
Sure.
emergency. But I think we need to be accessible because if elected as a councilman, I serve you. The council as a whole serves the resident. So it needs to accessibility number one.
You talked a lot about service and the notion that getting involved, serving your community is a great way to get back. Uh, Obviously, there are opportunities through this position to do that. Do you think, whether or not you're elected to this position, are politics something that you want to get involved with into the future? I mean, you're a relatively young man. Do you want to run for public office again? If not for city council, perhaps for a different position?
Yeah, I think so. Start off city council and work your way up,
Mhm.
but work your way up in a smart manner in that in the middle of your term, if elected, I wouldn't, hey, I'm going to go for supervisor or I'm going to go for this or I'm going to go for that. I would finish out my term because I owe it to the residents who elected me, if elected, of course, to finish out my term before, going to a higher office.
Mhm.
But yeah, I could see myself in public service.
Mhm.
I love this town and, I want to do whatever I can to make it better. You know, there's an old cliche, leave it better than you found it. And that's
Mhm.
what I want to do. Leave
Sure.
Fowler better than when I, if elected, got elected. Leave it better.
Mhm. Have you found that any of your educational background or your professional experiences, any facets of that that have prepared you feel for this role?
I believe a little bit of life experience, like you mentioned. I have a degree from Fresno State in criminology, law
Mhm.
enforcement option. So I had to take a lot of criminology classes. So I've kind of seen a little bit of the crime side and recidivism and how we can community policing and get more involved in that kind of area. And I've also at my current job, a lot of people come in and talk to me. They know I
Mhm.
go to the city council meetings every other week. Hey, how do I go about doing this? How do I go about doing that? And so I think those two things, as well as attending the meetings, I think it's prepared me to be on the city council.
Mhm. There is, and I'm going to ask you because you mentioned the idea of a tax and talking about an additional sales tax. In this case, the context was to fund our fire department. But I'm going to ask you as an alumnus of Fresno State, and because it's germane in the sense that there are now two very, very large signs near the Starbucks in town that are advertising Measure E, which is the additional sales tax that would go to fund Fresno State. Critics of that tax have asked or have tried to position it as an opportunity to fund a new football stadium, while proponents of the measure have suggested that up to 2/3 of the funds that are generated through the additional sales tax would go towards the university and student-centric activities, while the remaining third would go to a football stadium. Now, again, it's not particularly germane to this race, but I am curious, as someone who understands the leverage that a sales tax can provide and as an alumnus of Fresno State, Where do you fall on that issue?
I haven't really looked into it too much. There's always two sides to every story. One side's going to make it sound better than the other.
Mm,
But if it's going to help, you know, new classrooms, fund research, scholarship grants, that kind of thing to help the community, then I would be for it
mhm,
because I've heard that 75-80% of Fresno State graduates stay here locally.
mhm,
So if we can help more, graduate more, they can stay here. There's more staying here to help our community, from Bakersfield to I don't know how far you want to go and count as the Central Valley, but
mm,
I think long term it would be beneficial because it's more educated people staying here locally making a difference.
mhm, mhm. Do you have any? We're, gosh, just about a month, in fact, almost a month to the day from election day. Do you have any campaign meet and greets planned, any type of public interaction where folks can come and meet you and ask you any direct questions?
Yeah, me and my campaign committee are trying to arrange our schedule so that way we can have functions, meet and greets, maybe at Starbucks
Mm,
or at the park. Or I know I've also put my email on Facebook
mm, mhm,
so people can get a hold of me that way.
mhm,
But I do plan to be walking neighborhoods,
mm,
and I want to make sure that we have at least two meet and greets where people can come, voice their opinion, give me, their feedback, their questions, comments, concerns, and I can address them the best I can.
mhm. There are currently plans right now. I believe it's been moved and it's still being firmed up. But right now, tentatively, it's planned for October 12th. There is a candidate debate that the Fowler Lions Club is going to be putting on. Are you planning to participate?
I am.
Very good. We'll see on the 12th. One final question for you before I let you go. You mentioned going around canvassing, knocking on doors. What has that experience been like? Going door to door, meeting residents, fellow residents of Fowler.
It's been interesting. A lot of people, oh my goodness, you're Victor and Lucy's kid. They
Mm,
know my parents, they know my uncle, they know that, this family member, that family member.
mhm,
But one thing, that's been the most interesting part, but it's been the same. And when I say the same is that people, there's people up to no good in my neighborhood.
mm,
How come my sidewalk is, lifted and raised? How come, this neighborhood or this side of town, their lights, their street signs, their curbs, their gutters, their this, their that. And so what I've been telling people is, I can't promise you anything, only that I'm here to serve you and to make sure that every neighborhood, no matter where it is taken care of. And so that's what I mean by it's the same. It
mm.
seems like everyone kind of has the same issues or comments or concerns about the town,
Sure. Yeah,
but
unifying.
more so in Old Fowler. That's why I
Mm,
say I want to try to take care of Old Fowler and get it up to par.
mhm, mhm. Are there any other topics that you want to touch on before I let you go?
Hmm. I know there was a lot of, I don't know if say outcry or maybe more of like, hey, how come when the new police chief was hired?
Mm,
And what I want to do is maybe we once a year we can community-based questions to ask on interviews, if
mm,
that's even allowed. Like, hey, if we are going to hire a fire chief, what are, three or four questions that the city manager and the city council can ask on behalf of the residents, and then see if we can, you know, release those answers. What are you going to do for crime? What are you going to do for graffiti, vandalism, um, kids speeding down the streets during lunch, people rolling stop signs? I'm just trying to think of some of the comments I've heard.
mm,
Um, dropping the kids off and picking them up at the schools. Is there a better way we can do this? Maybe we could ask the police chief, or even promotions to lieutenants and sergeants, like, how would you fix the traffic around the schools during pickup and drop off?
Hmm.
So I think I would want to do more community based questions to allow the public a chance to interview, their police chief, their fire chief, their city manager, or, the upper level public works director, the upper management of the town,
Hmm.
if it's allowed. I don't know if what the answers they give can be released and if they're even, behind closed door kind of thing.
Well, and to that end, because you brought it up, and you're right. I mean, I've heard there's been some pushback in regards to the manner in which the police chief was hired. I guess my counter to that would be we hire professionals. We hire a city manager who is exceptionally well qualified. We give the city council an opportunity to vote on her recommendations, and they do. I just the sense that people saying this is excuse me, less than transparent, I don't necessarily know if that's accurate. I mean, I just, you wonder about, is there an alternate way to do this that, to your point, allows the community to feel more involved in the hiring process? But ultimately, we hire these executive level positions and imbue them with that level of responsibility because that is part of the job.
Yeah, and like you said, we hire the city manager to do, the hiring and firing for us. The city council tasks him or her with that. But I think a compromise would be, maybe a couple of community based questions,
Mm,
just to kind of satisfy both people that, we were involved. Maybe they picked our question, maybe they didn't.
mm,
You know, I see it doesn't hurt
mhm, mhm. Sure, absolutely.
because
Well,
I'm sure people want to know what the new police chief is going to, what ideas they might bring in to, lower crime
mhm.
or to clean up the pickup and drop off at the school.
Mhm. Well, and I agree with you. I think having that type of involvement early on can kind of give you a baseline in terms of what to expect. I will say our former police chief, there was a session that I attended in, oh gosh, I think it was about a year before COVID. COVID has made everything sort of, you don't remember what year was which.
Yeah,
But he did a public information session, I believe in February of 2019, and it was great. I mean, it gave people an opportunity to come and sit and ask questions, very direct questions about what his plans were for the future of Fowler. And granted, he's no longer with us, but they were great. I mean, he certainly had a long-term plan and long-term strategy for how he wanted to handle the growth of our community. But I mean, to your point, those types of things could be useful at the beginning of the hiring process as well.
as well as to what you were saying about Chief Rudy, the coffee with the cop.
Mm-hmm.
That's, if we do this at the beginning when they're hired, these coffee with the cops, quarterly, monthly, twice a year, are, you know, updated versions of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see the coffees with the cop continue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great idea. Well, I want to again thank you so much for being my guest. Is there any last topic you want to cover before we conclude?
No, I think we've covered the main topic. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure, and we'll see you at the debate on October 12th.
Sounds like a plan. We'll see you on the campaign trail.
All right, we'll see you on the campaign trail. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much.